Hello, everyone. I'm back here again with Dr. Nario from Biointegrative Health. Thanks for being here, Doctor. Today, we want to talk about toxins. So, welcome. Good to
Hi.
see you again.
Nice to see you again.
So let's just, what is a toxin?
Okay, so a toxin is, I want to use the word that's commonly affiliated with it. It's detox. Detox, there's so many products out there, herbs, colon cleanses, diuretics, all commercialized. And I'm sure at least one in your life, you have done this. Probably you ended up sitting in that toilet the whole day and your backside is crying nonstop. That is not the right way to do detoxification. Basically, this is what we are cleaning out of our bodies. There are two types of toxins in our system. One, the physical. When you talk about the physical, these are small molecules or proteins that gets in contact with your body and it gets absorbed by the tissues, which causes dysfunction. Four types of this physical toxin. I'll just touch on it and then later on I'll expand. Four types, more common ones would be one, injuries or medical conditions. Number two, chemicals. Others would be heavy metals and nutritional deficiencies. Another one, a more deadlier type of toxin, is the non-physical type of toxin. This is mental, emotional, spiritual issues that you have. Why are they more dangerous? Is for the reason that they're the unseen enemy. It does more damage. It goes long term, deeper into the physical. It ruins your energy flow, which affects physical conditions of your organs.
Okay, very interesting. So that something emotional can actually create toxins in your body?
Yes, that is correct, and that's
Wow.
why it's something that people are not aware of. Because everybody thinks that I have to see it, I have to touch it before it harms me. But
Well,
this
that's
one is
amazing.
very dangerous.
That's amazing. So it maybe has nothing to do with what I put in my mouth or what I swallow. It has to do with, wow. Okay.
Yep,
So
true.
what's a chemical? What's the difference? What's a chemical?
The chemical that that's considered one of our physical toxins. This is we can consider this. It has a bigger umbrella underneath. Pesticides, herbicides, GMOs, or genetically modified organisms. These are seeds that are resistant to pests and insecticides, and it's made in a lab. As the U.S. having one of the largest agricultural industries, there is an increased use of this pesticide in our food sources. A good example would be DDT. It's toxic, it's carcinogenic, and it's a hormone disruptor, meaning it disrupts the functions of your reproductive organs to the point that it can actually lead to cancer changes. Soy and corn are the most common GMO sources here in the United States, which are all related to food allergies and antibiotic resistance. Natural tip as I move along with these different toxins. For this one, we always hear about organic produce versus non-organic produce. Non-organic produce, this is the one that we consider with high levels of herbicides, pesticides, and as we always see, these are the larger produce than the normal. For example, an apple. An apple that you would see, a normal apple would be just this big. But when you go to the stores now, it doubles up. It's a bigger type of apple. Then you become suspicious. What happened to that apple? What did they inject in that to make it bigger? Then you think about it. That's why when I teach about eating organic, it's actually having a more expensive paycheck out to buy your food, but it's all worth it. This is where you buy organic produces that are smaller and they rot faster because they're just natural. They don't have anything like a preservative that's inside. So this is when your partner says to you, bigger is better, not this time.
So, when you talk, I always come up with so many more questions. Now, how do these chemicals, how do they get in your body? Is it only by ingesting them or can they get in your body in other ways?
Yes, there are. Another, most common would be ingestion. because as I spoke to you about food, number two would be through your skin as well. When everything gets sprayed, let's say you're in a field where they use pesticides, your skin can really absorb that. Your eyes, the mucous membrane, you smell it, you inhale that, it goes to your lungs. There are other ways to get it, but these are the most common ones in how you absorb them.
Okay, so that'd be like potentially Roundup or something that people put on the ground. It could be anything that it could get in other ways than us, other than just putting it in our mouth.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so tell me about heavy metals, because I know heavy metals, at the clinic where, I go to biointegrative, um, Nevada is notorious for heavy metals, right?
Yes.
More than most states. So tell me about heavy metals and what happened in Nevada? Why did we have it so bad?
Well, Steve, that is pretty good in relation to your observation about Nevada. But let me start with what heavy metals are. Mercury, a good example for you would be, I don't know if you've seen these old thermometers where there was mercury inside, and we used to break them up and play with them like a little squishy blob in our hands. That's mercury, and that's bad for you. Now, mercury can be applied in our food source, which is basically more of seafood. All the fish that we're almost eating is swimming in polluted waters. So not only is there mercury, but also arsenic. Another one would be lead. Lead is in our drinking and even our tap water that is in our house. Why is that? Because the pipes that where it runs through, those are made out of lead, and we still take them in. Going back to your question about Nevada, why is Nevada high in arsenic? I mean, just in heavy metals, but basically arsenic. A good example for you would be in Garnerville. So we have these reservoirs of water where we suck water out from the soil. And this soil was once, as we all know, were mining areas that used to remove gold and silver in these lands. And they need to use these specific chemicals in relation to extraction. Now they're not there. They left it. They're all abandoned. But now the chemicals are still there, and it's now seeping in the soil. And now as we get our water from soil, then we also get it. So a natural tip for heavy metals, as we all know, as I mentioned about the water that you're using at home, the tap water, we're brushing with it, we're gargling with it. And as we put that in our mouth, it's the mucous membrane that actually has a high systemic absorption that sucks everything in our system. And it also gets into the different parts of our body. And even showering, that also kind of gets us, I
Hmm.
guess, accumulating heavy metals. Solution would be putting filters that actually has the capacity to remove heavy metals. And for seafood, always try to get wild caught type of seafood and avoid fish from like the Pacific Ocean, which is one of the more polluted sea or oceans in the world.
Hmm. Wow. So it's if someone lives in an area where there was mining, then they need to be more aware of uh, potentially more harm from these metals. Now, tell me about nutrition deficiency. Does this cause us to be deficient with these different toxins? I mean, how can our diet help? But from a nutrition standpoint and deficiency, what can you tell me about that?
Well, with nutrition, as I always say, nutrition is very common. That's why people think it's benign. Nutrition is not eating quality food. We're eating processed food meaning fake food. We add preservatives in it. Proteins, vitamins, and minerals all being stripped out from the food sources that we eat. A good example would be the growing US fast food industry, which is now earning almost 208 billion a year. This is where our food sources actually gets contaminated with steroids, hormones, the low quality feeds that the meat is getting. And a good example would be chicken. Chicken, when you think about an organic chicken, it's a wimpy, thin, scrawny chicken. But when you add hormones to that chicken, it becomes juicy, big, scrumptious. That chicken breast is ready to be your next takeout burger. Unless your chicken has a lifetime membership in a gym and can bench press almost 300 pounds,
I've
they
seen those
do
chick-
not have.
I've seen those before.
Right. Well, if that chicken breast is that big, then they have all the right to be having all these huge pecs. But my point here is this is not the best food source to put in your body because you will also be taking these hormones in your system. Natural tips would be, of course, avoidance, but cooking tips. Cooking, we always like to fry. 4th of July just passed. We love to grill, we love to broil, we love to barbecue. The burning of this type of cooking process produces free radicals called Maillard reactions. These are the black tarry parts that coal-like on the meat when you're grilling something, when you fry something. That actually is a carcinogen. These are oxidized carbohydrates and proteins, and these are actually getting in contact with your colon, which will produce possible colon cancer. And another one would be high fructose corn syrup. Check the label of anything that you buy. If you have this, these nasty food sources would just turn into fat. They would not be even metabolized by your liver, thus escaping proper clearance and filtration.
Okay, so that's a lot of good information about physical toxins, but something that fascinates me is the non-physical toxins, mental, emotional. So I guess stress is probably could be a contributor to this and not a very good thing.
Yes, that is a pretty good point, Steve. The definition of a non-physical toxin, this is actually something that's adverse and very damaging to the point that in a state of mental and emotional strain, it brings tension and disruption to the whole system. In short, stress. If you have stress, even from the simplest thing of figuring out if how to join a Zoom call, or should I wear a mask when I go out, or even to the complex stress of having huge debts, major illness. Those are pretty different if you think about it. But the point with stress is it's very subjective. A big problem might not be big for your neighbor, but maybe huge for you. That's why we need to understand this and how it affects us internally. Statistics here in the US would be 1 in 5 experiences extreme stress. Another one would be stress is causing almost 60% of human illness for us, like heart disease and strokes. And it can lead to overeating and also lack of sleep. That's why feeling drained, when you feel that, you know you are stressed. So natural tip for you is cleaning up the dirt, and you should know when to press the reset button. When I say that, you have to find adaptive ways of clearing your emotional toxins through meditation, prayers, yoga, and even having a hike out in nature brings you that comfortable feeling. So different for everyone in relation to mental illness or mental stress. But the thing here is we have different coping mechanisms where we should find our comfort in releasing these loads off our shoulders.
Yeah, it's interesting because being a gym owner myself, I know that people can go in and they have all this stress, but they walk into the gym for 30 minutes. And what it does is it gives them a 30-minute break from their stress. And that makes a difference. They're going to walk out the door and the stress is going to hit them again. But that 30-minute break can really be a benefit, right?
Right. That's what you call having a breather.
Yeah. So we've learned about all these toxins. What I'd like to do, in our next sessions is kind of find out, because you do a lot of really fabulous treatments there that can benefit these things. So maybe touch a little bit on, going into our next sessions of things that we can do about toxins. And then in our next session, we can get into more detail of maybe one treatment, because I don't know, you maybe have 4 or 5 treatments that are all good for eliminating toxins. Is that right?
Right. Well, the thing here is in the clinic, we have our usual interventions, and most of them, let me just run through them real quick. For the heavy metals that I mentioned, we do chelation therapy and addressing the nutritional deficiencies of our food sources. We do IV therapy in order for the nutrition to go through the bloodstream and not through the gut. And when we talk about chemical exposures, we're talking about disposal of these toxins through liver cleanses. And for the non-physical toxins, we do acupuncture. But nothing beats really education. It's all about understanding sources of where these toxins are coming from, how we can avoid them, and also being proactive about change and knowing how these toxins affects us. We can only give you options as doctors and providers, but at the end of the day, it will be you who will be the main driver for your health.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Nario. Look forward to our next session and finding out about some of your treatments. We just pick one at a time because I know it's just one treatment. There can be so many details and so many benefits just from one treatment. So look forward to that and get people informed about that. So until next time, I want to thank you, Dr. Nario from Biointegrative Health Center. They're in Reno. You can check them out. Look up, Google them, look that up, and great information. They had great doctors there, great people working with them. So thank you, doctor. Until next time.
Thanks, Steve.
Mm-hmm.